What's going on, guys? How have y'all been? And Happy New Year to you for the first video of 2021. So today I actually have a review video for you of a product from a company that I reviewed several products for, and actually you probably heard of them just recently if you watched my product of the year video. But that is, of course, Cayin and their, at least for me, their newest product that I reviewed, their N3 Pro. This is an approximately $500 digital audio player that I think has a lot going for it. Definitely some features that sets it apart, in my opinion, from the rest of the crowd. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump into this review and let me share my thoughts so that maybe you can make an educated decision if you were looking into the N3 Pro versus several other DAPs on the market. So starting with the construction of the N3 Pro is actually, as you're seeing here on screen, very, very nice. It's very simplified. It's a CNC aluminum frame with the only, I guess, non-CNC aluminum is the front and back glass. Actually, I'll see a picture right here, because I don't think I actually took a picture of the glass. But it's very nice, and it feels very firm in your hand. It doesn't feel cheap. It actually feels like what you would hope a $500 digital audio player would feel like. So on the right side, or yeah, if you're looking at it right side, you have your power button, as well as your volume knob, your previous track, play, pause, and your track forward. Moving to the bottom, you have your Type-C USB charger, your single-ended line out, 3.5mm phone out, and your 4.4mm balanced out. Moving over to, if you're looking at the front, the left side, you have your up to 1 terabyte SD card, micro SD card, let me rephrase. So the construction of which, very, very simple. One thing I do need to note is that this is actually a touchscreen front. The sight glass here is actually for your tube amps. So there is actually a tube / solid state amplifier, DAP. So you get the best of both worlds. And I'll touch on that here in just a minute. But the bottom of which, this screen here, goes into 7 different colors depending on which format or, source you're actually inputting through this, which I cover more in my written review, which of course is going to be linked in the description. Now, as for features, this thing does have quite a few features that, like as I said earlier, sets it apart, at least in my opinion, from the rest of the crowd. The first of which, in my opinion, one of the coolest, is that, as I just said, it is a tube amp and a solid state amp all in one. Literally, it's just a click of a button when you scroll down the screen, as you're seeing here. All you need to do is click that solid state button when you have headphones plugged in, and it turns into tube amp. You see the tube amp right here, or the tubes, turn on, and it actually gives you a notable, please wait 5 seconds for the tubes to warm up. This protects the device and protects from any kind of surges and just makes it for best sound. Your tubes have a little bit of time to warm up. 5 seconds is a bit short, so be patient. So with that being said, say you're listening to a song and you're going back and forth. Okay, I wonder what this sounds like on solid state. Literally just hit the same button, boom, instant solid state. And you're like, okay, hit the tube amp button again, wait 5 seconds for it to rewarm, and there you go, there's your tube sound. All in one very nice and one consistent package. I really, really like that feature. The other feature I do want to touch on is that this has built-in Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, LDAC, and is it Hibi wireless? Anyway, it can communicate wirelessly. So if you have your phone, your cellular device, you can Bluetooth or Wi-Fi it to here, have your either Bluetooth to a pair of headphones, or what I was doing, just a line out into the headphones, and you can listen to whatever streaming service you want to use on your phone. Power through here, so you get this amplifier and DAC into your headphones. Much more efficient than what many phones can do, at least as far as better results. And I'm even using the LG V60, which is a pretty good amp and DAC, especially DAC. So though that is a really cool feature, I will say that's also kind of a downside is, at least like on another DAP that comes to mind is the Cayin i5, where that was all built in. Now, granted, that was also an Android operating system that was all on one, but that was really cool to literally just have YouTube or Tidal or Spotify or Pandora, whatever streaming service you choose, you could have that all in one nice package. You didn't have to have your phone connected to this, connected to your headphones. It was just headphones connected to your DP, browse your YouTube, and any other aforementioned streaming services. I wish this did have that. And lastly, it's kind of like a selfish or a subjective feature, and it's not really a feature, but one I do want to highlight is that the battery life on the N3 Pro is wonderful. When just listening through the N3 Pro itself, I easily have an all-day battery life. I didn't exactly measure it, but it made... I a long time, easily a working day, an average person's working day. And even when I had it from phone to this to my headphones, I still got a very, very long battery life. Not as long as if it was going by itself, but still, I strongly believe your average 9-to-5er would have no issues getting probably a full day's out of it, consistent listening. Now, moving on to the sound quality. So how does the sound of the N3 Pro sound? So this is, of course, going to be a little bit different because it has each tube amp version, each version, tube and solid state, has its own subcategory, tube being triode and altilinear, and then solid state has another feature. I forgot what its exact wording is off the top of my head. But for simplification's sake, it's just going to be the tube state is going to be in the triode mode, and solid state is just going to be in its default solid state mode. It didn't mess with it much. In tube mode, the sound is what I like in tubes. It's very warm and it's very musical. Now, with that being said, despite it being a tube amp, the sound still wasn't, in all honesty, at least to me, as warm as I have grown accustomed to most Cayin products sounding. Again, the aforementioned i5 coming to mind. It's still warm and it's still very musical, but not as warm and musical as I have grown to expect from them. But going back to the actual music, I suppose, you still have that very nice, just smooth, just relaxing sound. And granted, yes, the majority of the sound you're going to get, the music experience, the separation, the soundstage, is going to be from the headphone. I got it. I understand. However, as I say, anyone, the amp, the DAC, etc. will alter that somewhat. I'm using the 3 headphones I am most familiar with, being my Sennheiser HD650s, my Empire Ears Hermes 6, and my Oppo PM1s. Those are the 3 headphones I've had for the longest. Those are my reference. I know how they sound. That's what I'm using as a reference when talking about the soundstage, the sound, etc. of my DAP. Carrying on. So, the soundstage is, I will say, a little bit more medium-sized, not claustrophobic, but not far out. It's a little bit medium, slightly smaller, but to medium-sized to what I'm usually used to with those 3 aforementioned headphones. The detail retrieval, surprisingly good. Like, I was very little I didn't notice on the N3 Pro that I did from my desktop setup, DAC and amp, etc. So that's going to say a lot, considering this product is literally like a fifth, roughly, of what my home desktop setup costs. So that says quite a bit about the newer technology versus my old. A particular song that I will give a spotlight on is the final performance from Your Lie in April. I think it's Chopin's First Ballad in G minor. It's linked to my written review. I can't think off the top of my head, but I think that's what. Anywho, very, very musical, very beautiful and emotional piece, especially if you watch the anime. It involves a piano and a violin. Very, very nicely. Now, I did notice through the tube amp mode that piece, the violin and the piano had its sharpness, not hugely, but notably decreased a bit. Take that for what you will, but I found it more enjoyable. Like, I wasn't getting those really sharp peaks that, especially violins, have a tendency to have that occur when they get excited. Now, switching roles to the solid state. The solid state is definitely what I would expect a solid state to sound. It is very, very accurate. Like, and I said in my written review, it's kind of weird saying that it was dramatically different, which it was, but not overkill as this is about to sound. But as much of a difference it sounded going from tube amp to solid state, and being able to A/B them so quickly and seamlessly. But when you have it in solid state mode, your violin and your piano very much so sound like a violin and a piano, how it should. It literally sounds like you're right there listening to a true instrument instead of something that's a little bit more dulled down to make it sound more musical, more smoother, more I guess tubey. It's the only way I can really describe it. And then one thing I did notice on the soundstage when switching to the solid state mode is the soundstage made a notable increase. Instruments sounded more separate. They sounded more individualized, and you can definitely tell them apart in solid state mode than you could in tube amp mode. A song that really showed or showcased this difference, and of the many I listened to, it's just one of the more recent ones, is Some Kind of Beautiful. It's by Tyler Ward. It's also linked in my description as well. But beautiful piece. Very, very beautiful piece to listen to. Highly recommend it. It's a good romantic piece as well. But listen to this. You can hear the vocalists. You can hear the instrumentals in the background. You hear everything a lot more individualized as its own entity than you could in tube amp mode, where everything just wants to kind of smooth over together, where you just kind of take the whole picture in instead of pinpointing each different piece by itself. I, surprise to no one, enjoy the tube amp sound. I like that music as a whole versus having to, okay, this and this and this, okay, that's there, okay, this and okay. I don't care. I just want to enjoy my music. But for, apologies if you can hear my dog barking. But for me personally, that ability for a user to say if I wanted to review a piece to switch back and forth, that is a really cool and defining feature that the Cayin N3 Pro has over many other counterparts. At least I, off the top of my head, can't think of one that has that built-in ability. But, my friends, in conclusion, my final thoughts on the Cayin N3 Pro is that it is a very solid DAP, especially in its asking price of, again, roughly $500, depending where you want to search through. It does come with a carrying case. I didn't mention this in this review, but it's in my written. But a very nice feature. I do appreciate it. Really appreciate it as well. But if you're wanting a very simplified DAP, not a whole lot of bells and whistles, but something that's a all-in-one, or not an all-in-one, but a combination DAP, tube amp, solid state, but still have the ability to stream from your phone. Pretty much everything you want in a DAP, but without the ability to watch YouTube on it. You're pretty much going to get that in a very, with respect to the general cost umbrella of how much DAPs can run. The N3 Pro is, in my opinion, a very solid option, at least to consider. But my friends, that is it for my review of the Cayin N3 Pro. If you have any questions, or if there's anything I may have missed, or that I didn't clarify, or you would like me to clarify better, please hit me up in those comments down below. I love reading and responding to all of you and answering your all's questions, at least with the best degree that I'm able to. Can't guarantee I'll have the answer to everything, but I will darn sure try my best. But as always, my friends, my name is Army-Firedawg. It has truly, truly been a pleasure, but most importantly, and please I ask of you all, stay safe.